So I am Jacqueline, and this is my older sister, Alexa, and we are the founders of Dateability, which is the only dating app for disabled and chronically ill people.
Welcome, everybody. This is the Rotary E-Club of Silicon Valley. Every week, we bring the stories of people who are making the world a better place, locally, globally, and digitally. We think that's a cool way to be thinking about your own possibilities. And as a Rotary Club, as a service organization, that thing of getting together with others who share an interest in improving communities, it's part of the energy that we enjoy so much, right? There are all these people. They bring together like their time, talent, and treasure to make life better for others. That's a good way to spend time. If you are interested in that kind of thing, you can learn more about Rotary specifically at rotary.org or our club at rotary.cool. I love that you can do that. As we think about this, first of all, I'm about to hand it over to our speakers. We've got a fantastic interview and presentation coming up. And in getting to know them, they will tell you a little bit about themselves. But if you are curious to know more, then on the webpage where you find our program and recording, or our YouTube channel, there you go, or on our podcast page, you'll find the full bios, and you are welcome to read those as well. We would encourage you to do so. You'll find links to their background and the Dateability app and this kind of thing. So we're excited. We're excited to hear about this very interesting approach to making the world a better place. And Alexa and Jacqueline, it is such a pleasure for you to. It is such a pleasure for us to have you join us as part of the Rotary Club of Silicon Valley this week. I hand the mic over to you. Welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much. And it's our pleasure. Do you want to start? Yeah. So I am Jacqueline, and this is my older sister, Alexa, and we are the founders of Dateability, which is the only dating app for disabled and chronically ill people. So this story of how we came up with Dateability starts in around 2009 when I was 14 years old. I developed various chronic illnesses after a seemingly healthy childhood. And we grew up in a really small town called Telluride, Colorado, and um, I lived a very sheltered life, so I wasn't experiencing so much ableism in my social life. Definitely some remarks from teachers and from people who didn't know me well, but I had a very typical high school experience with dating. Then I went off to college, and of course, you're in another bubble, and that was fine. And then once I graduated college, I moved to Denver with Alexa, and I signed up for the mainstream dating apps. And part of my chronic illnesses and disabilities is extreme joint pain, fatigue, lots of digestive issues, really symptoms from my head to my toes. So it really does affect every part of my life. And it truly has shaped me into the person I am today. And I realized that the world did not see chronic illness as a strength or something that was attractive, and I received a lot of rejection, a lot of discrimination. Um, for example, people would tell me not to have biological children because I could pass on my chronic illnesses, or they would tell their families about me, and then their families would give them a warning not to date me because I would be a burden. So that was really difficult. And obviously, after you're being told so many times that you are unworthy of a relationship because of this thing that you can't control, you start to believe it. And so my self esteem was really affected by my dating experiences, and I became sort of a shell of myself. And I really tried to isolate myself as best as I could. And I did not have any confidence. And then back in 2021, and we're still on lockdown in this sort of level playing field, I felt like, with everyone. Everyone sort of got a glimpse into my world of isolation. I had to make the difficult decision with my medical team to get a feeding tube placed, and my feeding tube is placed in my abdomen. And I basically get most of my nutrition from there. And so I don't eat 3 meals a day. I don't eat as a typical person would. And when I do eat, I have major consequences with puking. And that freaked both of us out and how that would affect my social life. So I had reiterated to Alexa that I wish there was a place where I could meet people like me who wouldn't be freaked out about me having a chronic illness or having a feeding tube, and that they would just be a little more understanding. And Alexa suggested that we make this place ourselves, and that's exactly what we did. And so as I'm, I had my surgery on November 10th, 2021, and we are in the hospital room. I was there for a week, and we got our notebooks out, started drawing up what we wanted the app to look like. And neither of us had any experience with this. So we just went with our gut instincts and was like, oh, okay, I guess you have to design an app and then eventually find someone to build it because neither of us are technical. And that's what we did. And then so we launched on October 21st, 2022.
And so we launched, like Jacqueline said, in October, a year and a half ago. And what we wanted to do with the app was bring in our favorite aspects of the other dating apps, which we had both been on before. And so, for example, the liking and matching with people in order to message with them mechanism, we liked that. Grindr has a user-driven algorithm, and we wanted to adopt that. We wanted our users to be able to choose for themselves who they wanted to match with and not necessarily leave it up to AI to figure out who's most compatible, because in our experiences, those weren't working for us on the other apps. The other thing that we wanted to make just the issue of disclosure easier. We wanted to solve that problem. So when Jacqueline was dating, a lot of times she would struggle with, how do I tell someone I'm disabled? When do I tell them, and how will they respond? And the disclosure aspect really caused her a lot of anxiety. And we've heard that from so many people in this community, that the disclosure aspect is one of the hardest, just that anticipation. And so we created a Dateability Deets section, which is an extensive list of broad terms like wheelchair user, immunocompromised, food allergy, and that goes on the user's profile under their basic information. And it's a really neutral way of disclosing one's chronic illness or disability. It's really reduces the anxiety. You get to be able to tell other users, like, this is the situation without getting into the nitty-gritty. And I think it really creates an basic level of understanding and respect without having to have that conversation that so many feel might be kind of intrusive or uncomfortable, at least in the very beginning. And so, for example, Jacqueline would have chronic pain and chronic fatigue on her Dateability Deets section. And so somebody looking at that who matches with her isn't going to go ask her to climb a 14er next weekend, because they know that that's not doable for her. And so she doesn't, they don't have to have that back and forth about what plans to do. They can make accommodations and figure out a plan that works for both of them together. And so it's seamless. We also have image descriptions on the photos, which a lot of the apps don't have. We have a profile verification function that really helps enhance safety. And really, we're trying to make the tech and the app itself accessible in addition to our mission of making love accessible. Since launching, we have almost 20,000 users, several success stories. They're all over North America. Some have started out as long distance. Some happen to live in the same city as each other. And the disabilities are so diverse. So, disabled and chronically ill people make up the world's largest minority. And I think a lot of people forget that, or they think that disability only looks one way. And that's really not true. One of our success stories, they are both on the autism spectrum. Another success story, he has cerebral palsy, and his partner has a limb difference and psychiatric disabilities. Another success story has chronic illness. Another one was disabled in a bicycle crash, and her partner has Parkinson's. And so it's really, very diverse. There's a variety of disabilities. But the common theme among all these people is that they want love and they're worthy of love. They want intimacy. And I think that's something that the rest of the world forgets and takes for granted. And I know, as someone who's not disabled, the world is so accessible to me. I can just, if I wanted to, go out to a brewery on a Saturday and meet all these people. And it's just not like that for a lot of people. And it wasn't like that for Jacqueline. And so while we set out to solve this problem that she was experiencing, really, we have undertaken a larger problem and are seeking out to to change the social experiences of the disabled community. And we're very excited.
Yeah, and we really do see ourselves changing the world for good. And because so many people undervalue connection and they they don't realize just how many aspects of life loneliness can affect. And we see this loneliness epidemic just it's so prevalent, and we really want this community who has been ignored and overlooked for so long to feel like that there is this place where they belong. I think there's this lack of culture among the disability community, and there's a lot of culture within other marginalized communities like the queer community or the Black community, and I think it can be difficult for the disability community to come together. One, because it is so diverse, but two, the world just was not made with us in mind. And so there are these accessibility issues, where, yeah, I mean, like the spaces like literally are inaccessible. They can't go in, or they feel like they don't belong and it's not inclusive. And like Alexa said, we do have several success stories, and like those ages range from their 60s to early 20s, and so that's really great. We've seen this large influx of older people, and which shocked us because someone once told us, you either age into disability or you die young. And that really was profound. And unfortunately, we learned that ableism does not stop when you reach a certain age. We've heard from a lot of users who are in that age group that people are still judgmental and they still will discriminate against you. And so we're really pleased that we have offered this platform for people to connect, and that it's truly working, and that the proof is in the pudding. But another aspect of Dateability and the movement we are promoting is increasing the representation of disabled entrepreneurs. It can be really hard to be a disabled entrepreneur, um, but it's possible. And I never thought it could be. I always felt like, I do struggle with a lack of energy and fatigue, and just having so much unpredictability with my chronic illnesses. So I was like, oh, there's no way I could run a business like this. But I've realized that I can, and that I just have to adjust and adapt. And really talking about it is important for us, and having other people who are in the disability community realize that they can do it, but also having people outside of the community realize that disabled people are good employees, can do it, because the workforce is just not accommodating to disabled people, and there are a lot of wrong assumptions about our capabilities and our work ethics. And just because someone's work schedule doesn't look like another person's doesn't mean they are not as productive or a good employee. So that has been a really important part that we want to publicize and talk about, because that's something that we didn't really go into this thinking, oh, we want to be a spokesperson for disabled entrepreneurship. But it's been a really nice new perspective for me and for people.
And I think it's important to fill that gap of that is, largely empty among disabled entrepreneurs, because disabled entrepreneurs and founders are 400 times less likely to receive venture capital funding. And I think women founders received, I think it was 2.5% of all the venture capital funding last year. So if you combine female and disabled founders together into one, there's like no venture capital funding for us. And I really thought going into it naively so that we would be the exception because we are the only players in this space. But we found out that we're not. It's really hard to get funding. A lot to say, talking about disability and intimacy, it's either, somebody can't relate, which is short-sighted because it's the only minority that you can join at any point of your life for any reason, or it makes people feel uncomfortable because a lot of times disabled people are infantilized or a lot of things are focused on getting necessary services like medical services, employment, quality of life. But people, like Jacqueline said, forget that connection is quality of life, and connection and loneliness can affect your mental health, your physical health. They say that people who are lonely tend to develop more heart disease. It can affect your work product and how efficient you are at work. And so it really does affect everything. And I think the rest of the world overlooks that. And we are just here to bring a lot of awareness to a lot of different things while keeping our focus. We're trying to keep our focus that we are here to make love accessible. And then, the side projects are having to do with disabled entrepreneurship and calling on, the lack of marriage equality among disabled people. And they all really do tie back into each other. And we are just really happy and flattered that we are the ones spearheading this.
Yeah. So thank you guys so much. And we are here to answer any and all questions.
Excellent. All right. Well, thank you so much for the presentation. I've got like a nice long list of questions. Several have come through in the chat as well, so we're in good shape there. I do want to introduce the group that we've got. So when I call your name, please wave at the camera. We're all members this time around. Joining us from Fremont is Lisa, and from Mountain View is Raj. From Houston is Rory, and from the east side of Italy is Cecilia, right? In Rushton, I am in San Mateo at the moment, but I'm based in San Jose. And we love that our particular format as a club gives us the chance to connect with people all over the world. So, Jacqueline and Alexa, I am so intrigued at many of the business aspects of what you do, right? So in talking about the challenge of getting venture capital, you're also essentially pointing out that you have found an opportunity and a niche, right, and have 20,000 users. So I would think that somebody in the VC world at some point would say, that's a heck of an opportunity. But talk to us a little bit about what it means to go from starting something to 20,000 users. That's a heck of a jump. And give us a little bit about the demographics. Are we talking about like mostly North America? Just talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so we are available in North America, and hopefully we'll expand globally soon, but that does come with a price. So we're building a strong market presence in North America. But I would say I attribute all of our growth to the press and the work that we're doing in getting the word out. Neither of us are in PR, but now we are. And it's been a real learning experience. And so a comment that we get all the time is who is your PR firm? And I always have to say, oh, it's just me. But I've truly just cold emailed all of the journalists that have reported on us, and that has been a successful method for securing press from Washington Post, NPR, Forbes, Fast Company, really all of the big players we've been in, and that has been amazing. But we also want to get into like the mainstream media and become a household name. So of course you have to read Forbes to see that article, and not everyone does. And so we want to have that brand recognition of like, oh, you see a billboard and you're like, I recognize that name. Or it's just you pass us on a subway and then you tell someone. And so we want to make even our press more accessible and just have a greater audience. And do you want to talk about the demographics?
I can let you talk about the
Okay.
demographics and then I can add.
Yeah. So we shockingly, we were split very 50-50 for male and female, which is incredible because most of the dating apps are majority men. And so that's been a fun surprise. And then we also have 48% of our community um, identifies as queer. And that is an astounding number, but there is such a large intersectionality between disabled people and the queer community. So it's not shocking, but it's really beautiful to see how diverse and how inclusive we are, and that people do feel like Dateability is a safe space, no matter who they are and how they identify or who they love.
And, we're happy that we have 20,000 users in just a year and a half with zero marketing budget. We don't have money for traditional marketing. Like Jacqueline said, we want to have subway ads, bus ads, billboards, and really become this household name. But for now, it's boots on the ground, participating in awesome things like this and with the Rotary Club, and really, make sure that we are shouting from, well, I'll say mountains because we're in Colorado. Shouting from the mountain that Dateability is here and we exist, and hope that that spreads the word until we do get some of that traditional funding in to put towards marketing.
All right. Well, let's talk about kind of the development for a moment. The deets that you talk about, these are details, right? So the details of one's difference, having that be in a setting where it's not something you have to bring up, creates, I think, a special opportunity for the user to feel like it's just easier to use the app, right? I'm curious about what a couple of things. One is, what is it that you've experienced in terms of like user testing, so the product testing, right? So in trying to get the different pieces out there, you're thinking about the strengths and weaknesses of other apps that are out there, and how you think about what it is that's going to appeal to this growing group of people that are using it. I'm also curious, like what is the financial barrier for them? I assume there's a cost to use the app, and if so, like what is that cost? What's the revenue model look like?
There is no cost right now, and that was really important to us to start out free to gain the trust of this community. There are a lot of times where I think this community is skeptical. Things have been promised to them, and then they haven't been delivered. I also think adding to the trust is that the fact that it is run by somebody who is part of the community. But we started out free. Also, we had a hard time wrapping our heads around charging for a social networking app when there's small number of users on there. We know that it's going to start out with zero users on day one, and then it'll grow. But until that time, we thought it would be better if it was free. Eventually, we will charge, and we're in the process of building a subscription model. So there will always be a free version. We want to be economically accessible as well. And so there will always be a free version, and then there will be a paid version with added features and benefits. And a lot of those features actually come from our users. They will email us and say, it'd be great if you could have this. And we make a list and say, that would be great to have that, and we can charge for it, because that is something that typically the other apps would charge for as well, or these types of features that they're requesting. So we will have that business to consumer revenue model. We also, like Jacqueline said, there's a lack of culture and community, and we want to be that as well, and really kind of create this almost a marketplace and have this B2B aspect of the business, where we can have a link to Target's adaptive clothing line, for example. And that's not official. We have not spoken to them. So just in case anyone from Target's listening, don't worry. But something like that we have in mind, because we did participate. We hosted a fashion show in New York for New York Fashion Week with Runway of Dreams. The models were Dateability users and the clothing was provided by Target. And we thought, how cool to, make finding adaptive clothing easier in addition to friends. And, everyone wants to look and feel good when they go out on a date. So it all ties back together. Or L'Oreal with their accessible makeup applicator. So there's just a lot of different ideas we have for revenue, and that we will be implementing this year.
Yeah. When building the app, we really did not take any like surveys or anything. We didn't even tell anyone until we were 2 weeks out from launching. We wanted to keep it really tight-lipped, just in case there was a big player in the game who was like, "Oh, I can bust this out," and what a great idea. So it was very secretive, and we did a lot of research on what we like on other just apps in general and then other dating apps. And then, like Alexa mentioned, a lot of our new features come from our users themselves. And so we are customer service. So we see every email that comes in and we respond to every single one that comes in. And we're always taking that feedback seriously. Some of it's great, some of it's not so great. But yeah, it's important to us that we build an app that people actually want to use.
All right. Speaking of feedback and partners, Celia, you have a question that you can ask that I've seen in the chat. Go ahead and unmute and share that one.
Yes. So my question is, one way to get visibility, I would think, is to try to become a buzzword, for lack of a better term, with the larger NGOs that are such as, disability advocate organizations. I'm sure you thought about that. There are no really original ideas out there, I don't think. um, but, just thinking about how you can grow your base, it would seem like really working with some of them would be a way to do that.
Yeah, and that's definitely been something that we've worked on, especially since we don't have that budget, but it's like, oh, well, we partner with you and it's mutually beneficial. You get your mission and your word out, and so will we. And so that's been um a great way for us to get our words out. And within specific communities, like we've partnered with the Arthritis Foundation. We're speaking at an immunodeficiency foundation conference in June. And so that is a great way for us to easily get our words out. And the feedback we get from all of these organizations is that dating is one of the most popular topics that people come in with questions. It's- it, Everyone craves that connection, and whether it is friendship or romantic, people want a companion. And so whenever someone learns about us, they're like, oh, thank God we finally have an answer for these people, instead of saying like, oh, be yourself. Like, they can give them concrete advice and say, well, sign up for Dateability.
And it's interesting because, there's so many, because the disability community is so diverse, there's so many organizations. And that's something, that no, we don't want to change. We want those, but we really do want to become like this household name and as this go-to app, because right now everything is so segregated and sequestered from each other. And people with cerebral palsy, they know, their organization, but then somebody with arthritis only knows people in their organization. And I think that there's value in diversity and getting to know one another and connecting with each other. We don't want to silo, each disability like by their diagnoses. And so there are a number of them, and we are definitely trying to make our way through the list.
Yeah.
And that seems like it's useful not merely for the goals of the app, but also for the business model, right? That
Absolutely.
you're again finding like a really promising niche there. In terms of talking about sharing it, you talked about like, hey, tell them to sign up for the Dateability app. Raj asked a great question about whether there are other ways that we can share this with people that we know. So, like, we may have people close to us who are dealing with some difference. It might be that there is some other angle for this. What are other ways you've encouraged people to share the work that you're doing?
Yeah, I think that most people know someone with a chronic illness or a disability. And something that we've been asked about is, how do I tell someone about Dateability without offending someone? And I think that is it's a natural feeling that you think you might be offending someone by, calling someone disabled, and that's something we really want to change. Disabled is not a bad word, it's not an offensive word, and it's not an insult. And chances are, if like the person knows that they're disabled, and that they won't be offended. I think that it's great to come from a place of like, it's not like there's something wrong with you and you need to go on this app because you can't find anyone else, but presenting the information of like, there are going to be so many people on here who understand you and have, similar perspectives. And that just might be easier. It's like if you were, a part of a certain religion and you want to date someone on that, and you just want an app that so you don't have to weed through all these people. It's just easier, and that's what we want people to realize. And yeah, it's just spreading the word, whether it is from customers or potential people who maybe want to angel invest. That's always appreciated.
I will say what Jacqueline was saying, like, how do I tell somebody they should join Dateability? There are some people, we know some people who might be like suspected neurodivergent, but haven't received a formal diagnosis. And so their loved one really does struggle with, how do I suggest they go on Dateability? And I think at the very least, Dateability is a much more understanding, kind place. Now, no, not everyone who is disabled or chronically ill is kind, but I think overall, there it's more accommodating. The culture of the app is more accommodating. It's less oversaturated. I mean, I have been on Hinge and Bumble, and there's just so many options and so many people to weed through that, and the majority of them do not fit what I'm looking for. And I think what we've seen, and this is going to be my next point, is that we've seen through the pandemic an influx of users who are still masking. They might not be disabled, they might not be chronically ill, but they still are wearing masks and taking COVID precautions. And they've started to join Dateability because you're more likely to find people who are willing to mask when they see you or take those precautions, because there's more of that understanding and desire for accommodation on there. And so I think at the very least you can say, listen, I know you've struggled on the other dating apps. People suck. But there's this app where I hear that people are more open and are, more understanding, and it's called Dateability. And I think you should check it out. Why not? 10% of our users are not disabled. So it isn't just for disabled people. 10% of them are not. So you don't have to diagnose somebody when suggesting go on Dateability. You don't have to give them a name or a label. You can just say that there's this app. I think it might be better for you, and suggest that they join. And then when they meet their partner, they'll be really grateful. They'll forget everything else that they thought before.
Well, I mean, it sounds like you brought compassion into a space that is going to be appealing to lots of people. I'm going to, I think, wind the questions down by combining a couple of questions that we've got. One is just about the geographical distribution. So, and the follow up with that is, are there surprises related to who is using the app and how they're using the app that you guys just did not anticipate? Like, it's like, oh wow, that's fantastic that this is a part of it. We hadn't seen that coming, or whatever. And that may be geographical. It may be from some other perspective. But I'd be curious to know where you are with that.
Yeah, we are pretty spread out across North America. Definitely see a lot of clusters on both of the coasts. And so we're trying to broaden our reach to Middle America. And those are also states that have a high percentage of disabled people. So I think that once we get into Middle America, it's really gonna our numbers are really going to shoot up. Surprises about that, I would say, like the senior population on our app. That's something that surprised me. And some of our users, they've never used a dating app. So it can take a lot of teaching. And but our users to our seniors are typically like extremely nice, and I love that. Like, they are like, thank you for teaching me how to use this. And yeah, I'm excited for people who are older to have a chance at love and finally make those connections.
And I think the nearly 50-50 split between men, those who identify as men and those who identify as women. I mean, on the other apps, it's 70-30, 70% men, 30% women. Even on Bumble, which was made by a woman, designed for women, it's just like that. And so I'm pleasantly surprised by that, because I figured we would follow in that trend of the other dating apps, and we haven't. So
I'm also surprised at how vulnerable people can get, and in a good way. It's people write things on their profiles just saying, like, what, I've always been searching. I've been searching for the one for years, and I just want to meet someone who will accept me for me and love me unconditionally. And I think that it's beautiful. A lot of times dating apps can come off as really superficial and surface level, but it seems like a lot of people are putting their hearts on their profiles, and I think that's a great way to catch potential matches.
That makes sense. Actually, I will add one more question. For those who are watching this and who are essentially saying, "Oh my God, that is absolutely something that I have looked for, I have wanted, or that speaks to something in my life." What are the protections in place that allow a user to feel comfortable being on the app and to sharing in the vulnerable fashion that you described?
It's a good question because the internet is a scary place. Even Instagram, Facebook, anything that involves the internet is scary. And so it's not just the dating apps. Like I mentioned before, we have a profile verification feature. And so while that doesn't go into the person's character, it can't guarantee that that person is a good person. It does guarantee that the person in the pictures is the person you're talking to. All of those requests are reviewed by Jacqueline, so they are not approved by AI. They are real. We have a report and block button on every profile, and you can list the reason, and those are reviewed daily. And so if you report somebody for harassment, we have pretty much a zero tolerance policy at Dateability, and they're off. We don't care about our numbers as much as we care about our users and their experience. We also have a safety tutorial at onboarding and safety resources that are under the settings section of the app. We think that, there's only so much that we can do, and educating our users is probably the best form of defense, and not to put the onus on the person, but unfortunately that's kind of the age we're living in now, is where we have to watch out for ourselves. And then lastly, we just implemented this feature before where anyone who's new who signs up, their profile, they can send likes and they can, browse profiles, but that activity isn't sent to the other users until they're approved by us. And so we can make sure that they're not fraudulent, they're not spam, that they're real before sending out those likes. And so a lot of times we were getting the comments like, "Oh, I had a like and it disappeared." And it's like, well, that's because it was, a spot account and we caught it, but we didn't catch it until after they sent out likes. And so we kind of solved that problem on both ends. It's safer and the user experience for everyone else is better.
Good deal. Well, I'll wind things down and then hand it back to you two for the final word. All of you who've taken your time to join us and learn about the cool things that are happening around the world to make communities better, to improve people's lives in the kind of innovative way that we see with Dateability, we thank you for your time. Let us know you were here. There's a little object on our SiliconValleyRotary.com page where you can tell us that. There's a discuss forum a little farther down the page where you can share your thoughts. And we would love for you to connect with us in that fashion. As we always like to do, we hand it back to our speakers for the final word. So, Jacqueline and Alexa, what would you like people to have clearly in mind as they finish watching the video?
Yeah, we would just love to encourage everyone to join the movement to making love accessible. We are available for free to download on Apple, Android, and available at dateabilityapp.com. We're also on all the social media platforms. We are always here to answer any questions or to receive any feedback. And I just want to let the world know that we are committed to making Dateability the go-to platform for the world's largest minority. And we really thank you for this opportunity to present.
Yes, thank you so much.
Well, it's inspiring. Thank you both. And everyone else, we will see you next week.